Hello and good day. It's a great pleasure to welcome today the managing partner from IBM Global Cybersecurity, Mark Hughes, with us from IBM Consulting. And we want to exchange a little bit about the state of the industry in cybersecurity, the threat landscape, as well as the role of AI and typical customer responses to it. And therefore, Mark, first question, what do you see with your global remit? What are the key topics at the moment? What do you see in terms of cybersecurity threat landscape, but also the state of the industry at the moment?
Well, Helmut, it's a really great question. Now, things are moving rapidly. So when I look across the globe, I see different threats emerging in different geographies. And then I also see geopolitics playing out in terms of the way in which the cyber landscape, and specifically cyber resilience, is really shaping up in those different geographies. So, for example, we see in Europe, there's some an approach where it's more European focused, where there have been some specific high profile incidents, where some big household names are really having to readjust their approach to cyber resiliency and how they think about how they might be targets in the future. Likewise, in the US, different threat actors emerging and different types of approaches. Asia Pac, likewise, there's some specific factors in that region which are indeed driving an approach there, which again is quite country specific to how they're really addressing cyber and cyber resiliency more specifically.
And it's an overall topic, not only the nation state threats, because of course in Europe we think about the Ukraine-Russia situation that is driving that. It's also from other threat vectors coming in.
I think criminal is a very big part of it. We see that still, and we also see criminals now upskilling in terms of using AI tools themselves. Even simple things like better phishing emails and that. We know all about that, but that now is really permeating the arsenal that the criminals have. And so some of what used to be very much the preserve of just maybe more sophisticated actors is quickly downstreaming into the criminal environment.
Okay, and now if we step into the shoes of the hacker side of the house, isn't it that the fragmentation of our industry and what we see at customers is actually helping them quite a lot? I mean, what do you see as IBM Consulting in that?
Without any doubt, Helmut. What I see is that the way in which we have built over many years the security apparatus in most of the large enterprises that I interact with at IBM means that with that fragmentation gives the opportunity for whoever they are, the threat actors, to be able to find a point of insertion into an organization and then obviously attack them and cause trouble. And that fragmentation has simply got to stop. And we have to consolidate. We have to move to reduce complexity as quickly as possible. Without that, and without an approach that really takes that seriously and makes a much more platform-based approach to security in these large enterprises, we just can't, we will not keep up.
Yeah, and then there is AI coming into play where you are playing strong as well in managing this AI journey transformation for customers. AI on the one hand accelerating the threat landscape, the vectors, speed, scale, sophistication. On the other hand, leveraging AI for the good side.
Yeah, so the good side, I mean, the good side, we're very, very big on this in IBM. We've built a lot of stuff, which is basically just starting with those use cases that we know in security have always caused a lot of trouble. And there's really two things about that. One is how we can get better accuracy. So we know that, humans as individuals can fatigue and not be necessarily produce the same result each time. A lot of the AI agents that we're building at IBM now can do that consistently extremely well. And secondly, they can do that much more quickly. So, and in security, I think it's always a question of if you can buy yourself time, you've got much more ability to be able to react to what's going on. So the speed, accuracy, and then concurrent working. So getting those use cases of agents now working together concurrently. For example, in IBM, we've developed something called Autonomous Threat Operations Machine, ATOM, where there are 15 different agents working concurrently, which normally would have been done sequentially in a sort of SOC environment. That's really game changing.
And that means, of course, that these agents normally should have a deterministic behavior. You want them to do exactly the use case that you want to perform, and you need to protect them as well, correct?
Exactly. So how do you then, as you implement AI, and not just in security, but more broadly across the enterprises that I work with, how are we thinking about how we protect the AI and get the consistency, and we can check that, A, that they're not being polluted in some way, but also that the data that's being used is being used proportionately, and we're getting the right results out, and most importantly, that the identities of the agents are managed proportionally in a way in which we would expect identity and access management to be managed in today's world with, you and I, for example. So all of these things are really game-changing with big advantage, but equally present serious danger if we don't get them right quickly.
Okay. So AI really drives more precision, actually, in cybersecurity, getting better security outcomes. On the other hand, you talked about platformization, you talked about simplification. Can you give one or two examples of topics that you have driven with customers on the modular platformization approach?
Yeah, so I see now the traditional space that used to, where we started with security operations centers now, for example, is an area where we're now bolting in many more alerts that are coming into that environment, be they identity related, be they traditional network related, for example, and edge-based, so SASE type alerts. So bringing that now into a way in which we can actually now look at that and use the AI agents to work across that is game-changing. So we're really opening up the aperture now, and in the past we've often been constrained because we haven't been able to really manage that in a way which gives that visibility across an organization. Now we can begin to spread across all those different areas and consolidate with getting the AI to run across it to now give a much more accurate and picture that allows us to respond much more quickly. And that approach is, I think, really, really fascinating.
So really driving, even with the agentic AI approach, productivity gains at customers, simplification gives better business outcomes, and then a better security that gives better security outcomes at the end of the day.
And exactly that. And the sort of things we're seeing in some cases are upwards of 50+% productivity, but importantly, also productivity gains in terms of speed to react. So we're seeing literally tens of days of being able to detect more quickly. And then in terms of response and containment, again, 50+ days in some cases. So completely game changing. That only really comes about when you can bring all of that together in a consistent way, as opposed to what we've lived with in the past, which is lots of different tools, trying to piece and stitch all that together. That's all over now in a platform approach. And that's something which I'm seeing our clients really moving towards as quickly as possible.
And again, with your global view, IBM as well as Palo Alto Networks, we have done fantastic projects together. What's the benefit for customers combining these two strengths together?
The fantastic technology that Palo Alto brings is just fantastic in terms of how it underpins the solutions. And then our knowledge of how we're running client environments, we can bring that in with our agentic AI, combine those two things together. I think it's well beating.